Number 10. Roti Island Snakenecked Turtle. By far one of the strangest and most exotic reptiles in the world has to be the Roti Island Snakenecked Turtle. This turtle is striking to look at with its ridiculously long neck. This is one of the only turtles in the world that has a neck so long that it is unable to withdraw its head all the way back into its shell like other turtles. Instead, the turtle has to tuck its neck into its shell sideways. It almost makes you wonder what having a neck this long could possibly be good for. This unique turtle is only found throughout Australia, some parts of New Guinea, and of course on Roti Island in Indonesia. They love to hide in the swampy wetlands, small lakes, and rice terraces. This genus of turtle is believed to have diverged from another turtle genus at least 70 million years ago, meaning it began evolving into what it is now way before the extinction of the dinosaurs. The result is certainly fascinating. The snake-necked turtle is able to live both on land and in fresh water, though it prefers building its nest somewhere dry and away from the water. Number 9. Desperate Leaf Chameleon. The Desperate Leaf Chameleon is one of the most bizarre reptiles you can find on the island of Madagascar. They're also one of the saddest reptiles in the world. It was only first discovered in 2012 by a doctor from Germany, and it was named accordingly, Brachysia desperata, as a way of trying to provoke thought regarding how desperately it is trying to survive. This is because its habitat is currently in decline, and the chameleon is now considered critically endangered because its home is being cleared by timber extraction to make room for cattle and to make room for crops. So, the Desperate Leaf Chameleon truly is desperate. As for the chameleon itself, it is tiny. The Desperate Leaf Chameleon is just around 1 inch long. It lives in the leaf litter in the rainforest in a cramped area in northern Madagascar that is less than 31 miles squared. They like to feed on small insects, and they use their camouflage to hide from predators. When disrupted, these chameleons will play dead in an effort to resemble a fallen leaf, which they look a lot like. They are easiest to find at night when they sleep on the small leaves and shrubs. Hey, before we continue, I just want to say thanks for checking out the channel. If you're liking this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 8. Red Spitting Cobra. Cobras are terrifying enough as it is. It doesn't even make sense that there are a legitimate red spitting cobra living in the world right now. This is one of the deadliest animals on the planet, but it's also incredibly rare and unique. This small cobra only grows to be around 4 or 5 feet in length, and they only live in eastern parts of Africa. And when I said this is one of the deadliest animals in the world, I really meant it. Even though the cobra is mostly into eating birds, eggs, frogs, and other amphibians, it can do some serious damage to humans. It all comes down to how the red spitting cobra produces its venom. Not only can it bite you and cause pain, swelling, tissue decay, even worse, it can spit its venom at you from at least 6 feet away. And when threatened, it will not hesitate to spit or bite. It rears up and displays its cobra hood and hisses loudly. In experiments conducted by researchers, the red spitting cobra rarely misses its target, their victim's eyes. The only good news is that if the red spitting cobra shoots its venom at your face, you probably won't die. But then again, if you get the toxins in your eyes, it could mean temporary or permanent blindness. What's even worse is that according to the African Snakebite Institute, the dangerous red spitting cobra has been known to sneak into houses at night and bite people. Number 7. The Pancake Tortoise. The Pancake Tortoise is arguably the coolest tortoise in all existence. The tortoise gets its name because it is literally as flat as a pancake. But don't let its appearance fool you. The Pancake Tortoise is incredibly fast for a turtle, flexible, and an unusually skilled escape artist. Its shell is indeed as flat as a pancake, but it actually helps the tortoise go faster. They can grow to be around 6 to 7 inches long and 1 inch tall. According to the San Diego Zoo, this is the fastest species of tortoise in the world. Its shell is filled with little holes, which make it lightweight and agile. And whereas most tortoises will hide in their shell when they feel danger is near, the pancake tortoise will instead make a break for it and run away. Plus, because its shell is so flexible, the tortoise is able to crawl into narrow crevices and other tight places where no other tortoise would be able to hide. They're also pretty great climbers, which is useful when trying to avoid predators. In the wild, the only 2 real threats to the pancake tortoise are mongooses and wild dogs. Another really interesting fact is that when the pancake tortoise is born, it will have a domed shell just like any other tortoise. However, as the tortoise grows, its shell gets flatter and flatter. And if you were wondering where the pancake tortoise lives, it makes its home in the scrublands of East Africa. Number 6. Round Island Keel-Scaled Boa. The Round Island Keel-Scaled Boa is one of the rarest and most fascinating reptiles in the world. It is the only snake within its genus, and it is found on one small island off the coast of Mauritius, which itself is a tiny island nation in the Indian Ocean. Because of the snake's incredible isolation, it was once at risk of going extinct. But there was recently a program that reintroduced rabbits to Round Island, allowing stable numbers of the keel-scaled boa to return. These snakes only grow to be about 5 feet long. Their bodies are covered in tiny little keeled scales, making them look extremely unique. The Round Island keel-scaled boa gets its name from the ridged or keeled scales on its dorsal surface. Very little is known about their biology, but they are known to be mainly arboreal. Plus, the snake has specialised skin cells which allow it to change its colour every 24 hours. The snake becomes darker during the day when they don't move around very much, allowing them to better camouflage themselves. At night, they become lighter while they are more active and hunting for lizards. Number 5. The Frilled Dragon. It really doesn't get much cooler than the Frilled Dragon. It's the most unique and most recognisable lizard of all time. You probably recognise this animal from the infamous scene in Jurassic Park when the scientist is attacked by a giant frilled lizard while sitting in his jeep. But this is an actual animal in real life. Mind you, it's not big enough to break into your car and bite you in the face, but it's a fascinating little creature. When threatened, the frilled lizard will expand the skin flap around its neck to the size of a dinner plate. When the twin frills on either side of the lizard's head are open, it practically doubles in size, reaching a maximum length of 33 inches. This is enough to horrify most potential predators and send them running. It also helps that the frilled lizard opens its mouth and shows off its huge teeth. Where do these little monsters live? If you guessed Australia, you'd be 100% correct. They spend 90% of their lives in the treetops. They primarily live throughout the top third of the country, and they can even be found in New Guinea. The frilled lizards in New Guinea tend to be quite a bit smaller than their Australian counterparts. Number 4. Madagascar Leafnosed Snake. It should be no surprise to anyone that Madagascar is home to many of the most fascinating reptiles in the world. One of the weirdest looking creatures on this giant island is certainly the Madagascar Leafnosed Snake. This is a strange snake with what appears to be a leaf growing directly from its nose. The snake is the only one of its genera, which makes it even more unique. As for the strange leaf appendage growing off of its nose, it actually looks quite different whether the snake is male or female. Female snakes have more elaborate nasal appendages, whereas the ones that males have are longer and pointier. No one knows for sure what the exact purpose of these odd nasal appendages are for. Some scientists believe they might be used for sexual signalling between rival males and potential mates, but nobody really knows for sure. These snakes have not been studied as much as others, making them a little mysterious. Number 3. Marine Iguana. Out of all the iguanas in the world, the marine iguana from the Galapagos Islands is by far one of the coolest. The marine iguana is the closest thing we have on our planet to an actual Godzilla. It's also the only lizard in the world that is able to swim through the ocean. They spend much of their time foraging in the sea for algae, as this makes up most of their diet. Some of the bigger male iguanas are even able to dive deep underwater to look for their food, while the smaller iguanas hang out where the tide is low and feast on the algae there. They can dive down to 65 feet and are able to stay submerged for 30 minutes at a time. They also look quite a bit different from a green iguana. Marine iguanas are darker, almost a black-blue colour, and they truly do look like small Godzilla monsters. Male marine iguanas can grow to 4.3 feet long, while females are generally about 2 feet long. Of course, if you want to get a close-up look at these little dragons, the only way to do so is by taking a boat trip out to the Galapagos Islands and seeing where they live in small colonies on the rocky shores. Here, you can watch them basking in the sun after a hard day's swimming. Number 2. Florida Legless Lizard. If you live in Florida and you've never heard of a legless lizard, you have been living under a rock. But of course, not everyone knows that there are 4 species of glass lizard that live in the state, plus 1 species of worm lizard. Both these creatures are considered to be legless lizards, which are often mistaken to be snakes or worms by locals who come across them. But make no mistake, these are not serpents. These truly are the weirdest lizards in the world. Take the glass lizard for example, which has a tail nearly 4 feet long that makes it appear as though it's a snake. But if you look closely, you'll notice it doesn't quite move the same way snakes do. Glass lizards move quite stiffly, and not as slithery as their serpentine friends. Of course, the worm lizard is a whole different story. This is not only a unique reptile, but an extremely disgusting one. It's also never been mistaken for a snake, seeing as it looks like a big flat earthworm. But it's not a worm at all, it's something else entirely. The worm lizard can grow to be nearly 1 foot long, and they live most of their life underground in sandy soil. If you're wondering exactly what makes it a lizard, the fact is that it's not a true lizard. It's part of its own classification, making it very different in the fact that it has scales just like a lizard, but no eyes or ear openings. Florida worm lizards, like glass lizards, are completely harmless. The worm lizard is definitely a freak of nature, but in the best way possible. Number 1. The Garial. The Garial is the most unique type of crocodile in the world. There's really no mistaking it for any other type of croc. It has an extremely long pair of jaws like a pair of needle-nose pliers. Interestingly enough, its name is derived from the word gara, which translates to mud pot. The Garial also lays the largest eggs of any other type of crocodile. Males can be 9 to 16 feet, and females 8.9 to 12 feet. It's also one of the weakest croc species on land because of its small legs and measly leg muscles. This means that they spend almost all of their time in the water, and when they do have to move across land, they do what is known as belly sliding, basically dragging themselves through the mud. If you're wondering why they have such long snouts, it's because they need them to catch fish. Juvenile gharials will eat insects and frogs, while the adults use their long snouts to quickly snatch fish out the water. As for their native habitat, they were once found all through the rivers of Bangladesh, India, and even Pakistan. But today, there are only a few populations still remaining in India, making them very rare to find in the wild. Number 10. Japanese spider crab. Out of all the most dangerous crustaceans in the world, the Japanese spider crab is without a doubt the largest of them all. The Japanese spider crab is the biggest crab in the world, able to grow over 12 feet in length. The reason it's called a spider crab is because it really looks like a massive underwater spider with its extremely long legs scuttling across the ocean floor. These crabs can also be pretty heavy, weighing up to 44 pounds. And as the biggest crustaceans in the world, the Japanese spider crab doesn't have a lot of predators to worry about. They eat anything they can get their claws on, including the bodies of dead creatures that have floated down to the ocean floor. There are even legends about Japanese spider crabs dragging sailors overboard and eating them alive. This is probably unlikely, but still, the average Japanese spider crab can live for over 100 years. That's a pretty long time. Their legs are also super muscular, and they can move at lightning fast speeds. With their strong claws, they could easily rip apart another animal or even a human if it came down to it. The good news is that since they live deep in the ocean, you're probably not going to have to fight one anytime soon. They're also not that aggressive, unless of course you're infringing on their territory. Number 9. The Remipede. The Remipede is one of the least known crustaceans in the ocean. It's also the only venomous crustacean known to man. Have you ever heard of it before? According to Mental Floss, there are at least 70,000 species of crustacean, including many different crabs, lobsters, and shrimp. This tiny creature looks a lot like a little white centipede, with a very long body and all kinds of legs. Where does this dangerous crustacean live? In underground caves in Mexico. They were first described by scientists in the 1980s after being discovered in the vast cave networks beneath Mexico. But it was only recently that researchers found out they were venomous. According to biologists from the Natural History Museum in London, Remipedes have fangs on either side of their head which are connected to a reservoir of fluid. Stored inside these reservoirs is a poison, created by a special venom gland deep within the crustacean's body. How poisonous could it really be? Well, it's very similar to the venom from a viper. It produces a special neurotoxin that is able to paralyze its victim. The Remipede employs a mixture of venoms that are highly dangerous, but because of their isolated cave location, there have never been any reported deaths. Hey, real quick, if this is your first time checking out the channel, welcome! Give this video a like, and hit that subscribe button for more videos like these. Number 8. Mantis Shrimp. The mantis shrimp has the strongest punch of any animal. This might be a hard thing to believe considering the mantis shrimp is an extremely small crustacean, but it's absolutely true. Pow pow! The mantis shrimp punches with the outstanding force of a .22 caliber bullet. This is a scary amount of force exhibited by such a small animal, but it doesn't have anything to do with the mantis shrimp's muscles. Instead, it has spring-loaded arms. Mother Nature really did a remarkable job putting this creature together. With its spring-loaded arm, the mantis shrimp can punch at an amazing 75 feet per second. According to scientists from the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, the shrimp's arm kind of works like a bow and arrow. The muscles bend backwards like an archer's bow being readied for shooting, and when the muscle releases, all that energy shoots forward, concentrated at the tip of the mantis shrimp's club, which in this analogy is the arrow. But can the mantis shrimp punch through a human? The answer is absolutely not. They only use this amazing ability to break the shells of their prey so that they can eat. You're not going to be punched unconscious by a mantis shrimp anytime soon, it's okay. Number 7. Aama Bin Laden. If you believe in reincarnation, you might want to skip this next story because it's horrifying. According to the Daily Mail, a family recently discovered the face of Aama Bin Laden imprinted on the underside of a crab. This happened in Washington state, when the family found the man's face staring straight back at them from the belly of this freakish crustacean while taking a crabbing trip near Everett. They even managed to capture the incident on video, and as you can tell by the images, there is no denying who this crab looked like. The family found the crab while they were unloading a pot of crustaceans into their boat, but at the time nobody noticed. The crab was female and illegal to keep, so the family chucked it back into the ocean. It wasn't until they checked their footage later and they realised that the face of the world's most notorious radical had been stained onto its bottom. But what could this mean? Is this crab plotting some kind of mass attack from the cover of the ocean? Should we be worried? Number 6. The pistol shrimp. The pistol shrimp is a biological anomaly. It's one of the only crustaceans on Earth that has a legitimate superpower. The pistol shrimp is able to generate a water jet to annihilate anything threatening to eat it. When it does this, it becomes one of the loudest creatures on the planet. But how does this power work? It has a lot to do with one of the pistol shrimp's claws, which has a modified plunger that fits into a modified socket. The shrimp is able to close its pincer with such ferocity that it causes a jet of water to be squeezed through a special groove, creating a powerful blast of liquid that can destroy any potential predator. But what's even more fascinating is that when it snaps its claws shut, the popping noise generated is one of the loudest natural sounds on the planet. Prepare to be even more amazed. The pistol shrimp closes its claw so quickly that it creates a cavitation bubble so intensely powerful that it reaches a temperature that is nearly as high as what's found on the surface of the sun. However, it's too fast to see with human eyes. It literally only lasts a fraction of a second, resulting in an extremely bright glow that can only be seen with a special instrument. Number 5. Toxic crabs. Crabs and lobsters are some of the most expensive meals you can get in a restaurant. But did you know that only a handful of crab species are commonly featured in seafood restaurants and fish markets? This is because not every crab is safe to eat. They are known as toxic crabs and they carry lethal doses of toxins. Most toxic crabs belong to the family known as Xanthidae, with the most toxic crab in all of Australia having a black-tipped claw. All of these crabs are notoriously poisonous, and yet they don't actually produce any toxins. Scientists agree that toxic crabs probably get all of their nasty bacteria through their diet. Because crabs do not have any kind of mechanism for delivering a toxin, they are only poisonous when people eat them. But just listen to what kind of toxins these crabs really have. The xanthid crabs mostly accumulate saxitoxin and tetrodotoxin, which are two of the most lethal and deadly substances known to man. The toxins typically build up inside of their muscles and their egg masses. Just 0.5 milligram of either toxin is enough to kill a human adult. Plus, the toxins are incredibly stable to heat, meaning they will still be found in the crab meat after being cooked. This is not widely known by the public, but now you can at least be aware that you can't just eat any old dirty crab you find. It could be the last meal you ever eat. Number 4. Lobster diving. Crabs, shrimp and lobsters can prove deadly to humans, but the act of actually catching these critters is far more dangerous than they could ever be themselves. Alaskan fishermen face some of the deadliest working conditions on the planet, but at least they have a boat to fish on. One of the most dangerous activities around today is lobster diving, in which a fisherman dives into the water to snatch up the lobsters themselves. It's a widely popular activity that can turn deadly. Take the case of a California lobster diver named Ryan Huff, who died in 2019 trying to catch some lobsters. The day was going just fine until Ryan's friends heard his spear gun go off. They never saw him return to the surface. They quickly panicked, swam to the area where Ryan was last seen, and went down to rescue him. 2 other divers found the man stuck on his own line 25 feet below the surface of the water, completely unconscious. It's believed that Ryan got his spear stuck in a rock and tried to free it, at which point he experienced a shallow water blackout. This is what happens when your oxygen supply is suddenly reduced, usually by an abrupt ascent. Unfortunately, Ryan lost his life in this lobster diving accident. Number 3. Isopods. Isopods may not seem scary. After all, walk out into your garden and move some dirt around and you'll probably find dozens of tiny isopods, commonly known as pill bugs. But lurking deep down in the ocean, there is a much more frightening isopod that survives by finding a host fish and taking its place as its tongue. These isopods live off the coast of France, in the Mediterranean Sea, and in a few other random places. But the way these marine isopods differ from their crustacean cousins like shrimps and crabs is that they are parasitic. First, the marine isopod must find a host. It will take its position on the fish's tongue, at which point it uses its claws to cut off the circulation of blood to the tongue. Over time, the fish's tongue will fall off. The isopod then replaces the tongue with its own body. Throughout this entire process, the fish has no idea what's going on. By the time the isopod has taken its place in the fish's mouth, nobody is the wiser. Parasite isopod then spends the rest of its life functioning as a real tongue, surviving off whatever food the fish eats. Of course, this could never happen to humans, but it's still frightening. Number 2. Crab of Death. There is a deadly crustacean known as the Crab of Death. It is the most poisonous crab located anywhere near the Singapore coast, and apparently there have been documented deaths from people eating it. This is one of those toxic crabs we talked about before. It's called the mosaic crab, and it's actually considered endangered. The crab gets its name because of a strange red shell, which is often covered in a weird mosaic of beautiful white artwork. It truly is an amazing looking crab, but you should absolutely never touch it, and for sure never eat it. The crab is known for eating the poisonous sea cucumber that also lives in the waters near Singapore and absorbing the cucumber's toxins into its body. The toxin is so robust that cooking the crab will not destroy it. When the mosaic crab is eaten, whoever's eating it will get a full dose and suffer the consequences. Number 1. The coconut crab. Finally, we have reached the end of the list and the most terrifying crustacean on the planet. The coconut crab is the ugliest, most savage, and toughest crab ever. The coconut crab has been known to kill birds, it can break bones, and many people believe that coconut crabs are responsible for eating Amelia Earhart. In fact, Charles Darwin described the gigantic coconut crab as monstrous, saying it was the only word he could use to describe such a beast. This is no ordinary crab. It's about 3 feet long and weighs up to 9 pounds, but it's strong enough that it can carry 6 times its own body weight. The claws of the coconut crab are as strong as the jaws of a lion. If you were to be attacked by one of these crabs, it could easily pinch your hand off. The pincers of this crab are one of the most dangerous tools in the animal kingdom. Luckily, coconut crabs will usually leave people alone. They spend the majority of their time hunting birds, tearing open live pigs, and cannibalizing other coconut crabs. They even eat their own skin when shedding their exoskeletons and growing a new one. Another amazing fact about the coconut crab is that it's an amazing climber, and this is where the name comes in. Coconut crabs are known for climbing coconut trees, knocking down coconuts, and then using their huge claws to crack them open. And if there aren't enough coconuts around, you might want to be careful. Number 10. Death dragons. A team of paleontologists working in Brazil recently discovered a new kind of pterosaur very close to the small town of Cruzeiro de Oeste. The place in which this fossil was found is known locally as the Cemetery of Pterosaurs, and beneath the soil there are hundreds of fossilized remains just waiting to be discovered. The newest species has been named Keresdragon, and it's really the name that makes this discovery so fascinating. Keres, the first part of the name, is actually a female death spirit from Greek mythology that would personify violent deaths. These types of spirits were also associated with doom, and were known to fly over battle zones seeking out the dying. Then there's the second part of the name, Drakon, which is a Greek word that means dragon or human serpent. Basically, this new dinosaur has been named the Death Dragon. The beast probably lived around 100 million years ago, when Brazil was a large and sandy desert. The discovery was only made recently, so we still don't know exactly how big or ferocious the Death Dragon was, but it's safe to say it was scarier than an eagle. Number 9. A disgusting snake. An absolutely disgusting monster has just been recently discovered in Brazil, and it's one of the strangest things ever. It's known as a penis snake, and it's actually a rare type of amphibian that was just discovered by engineers while they were building a dam in a remote part of the Amazon jungle. The penis snake got its name because of the organ that it pretty obviously resembles. But it's not really a snake. This creature is a limbless amphibian that looks like the most disturbing earthworm on the planet. There were actually 6 of these amphibians discovered at the same time. But even with so many specimens, scientists have not been able to find a lot out about these rather suggestive animals. Scientists know that they don't have lungs, and they probably breathe through their skin. They also know that they're probably aquatic, and they most likely feed on small worms and fish. Also, the penis snake navigates primarily by smell, which just seems weird. Number 8. The Mapinguari. The Mapinguari is one of the weirdest things ever found in Brazil. In fact, It might not even be real. It's apparently been sighted in Brazil and Venezuela, and as far south as Paraguay. The Mapinguari has been described as a large, foul-smelling creature with long hair, sharp claws, and a bad attitude. Some reports claim it has a mouth on its abdomen, with some European witnesses claiming the beast has a single eye in the centre of its forehead. In 2001, a researcher named David Oren collected 8 different sightings of the Mapinguari and 7 incidences of them being killed. But of course, not a single set of remains has been analysed by professional scientists or even properly photographed. The earliest accounts of the Brazilian Mapinguari were from the 1990s, when cryptozoologists theorised that the Brazilian jungle monster was probably just some kind of prehistoric primate never seen by human eyes. Other, more professional scientists claim that the Mapinguari is probably a leftover of the ancient giant ground sloths that used to rule much of South America. The only thing for sure is that some kind of giant creature is terrorising the jungles of Brazil, and nobody knows what it is. Number 7. A UFO Cover Up. After there were reports in Brazil of glowing lights coming from the sky in 2020, videos and posts allegedly started to be deleted from social media, and this has sparked a huge controversy that a UFO landed in the country of Brazil and then was covered up by the government. What makes this really crazy is that thousands of people apparently saw the glowing lights, recorded what they saw with their phones, then uploaded the footage online, only to have it vanish. This happened shortly after the plan to storm Area 51 in Nevada failed miserably. But this was quite a far distance from the deserts of Nevada. This happened in the municipality of Mage, near Rio de Janeiro. The clips uploaded by the local civilians clearly showed some kind of phenomenon happening in the sky, with flashing lights and zipping colours everywhere. And even though the Air Force and local authorities claimed that nothing had been flying in the sky that night, apparently hundreds of the uploaded videos disappeared as if some kind of entity online was trying to get rid of the evidence. It's been about a year since this happened, and we still don't know who suppressed the photos or what was in the sky that night. Number 6. The Bone-Crushing Croc. An extremely rare fossil has recently been found in Brazil, and it's leading scientists down a path to learning how the modern crocodile came into existence. This rare crocodile creature lived about 230 million years ago and probably hunted the early dinosaurs. It had 2 very strong hind limbs that were quite similar to the Tyrannosaurus rex, though millions of years older. Its name is Pelonischilensis, and it had giant teeth like blades and a long snout. And here's what I mean when I say it was similar to the T-Rex. Instead of being very flat to the ground like modern crocodiles, this beast actually stood on 4 legs, more like how you would expect a dog or big cat to walk around. It also would have had a longer, possibly narrower tail and a bigger, broader head. Basically, this fossil is showing how something that was more like a dinosaur slowly evolved closer to the ground, dipped into the swamps, and over millions and millions of years transformed into what we now have living in people's backyards in Florida. Number 5. Disturbing funeral rituals. In the ancient site of Lapa do Santo in Brazil, researchers have uncovered a treasure trove of seriously strange human remains. Archaeologists have unearthed remains that were elaborately modified by some of the earliest inhabitants of South America about 10,000 years ago. According to the lead researcher on the study, Andre Strauss from the Max Planck Institute of Evolutionary Anthropology, these bizarre remains are showing a whole new side of the sophistication of these ancient cultures. The bodies were found nestled inside of a cave deep in the rainforest, along with tools and even some leftovers of ancient meals. But here's the reason the corpses were so strange. Many of them were dismembered, mutilated, or otherwise ripped apart before being buried. Some of the dead had their teeth ripped out one by one, while others were either burned or cannibalized before being tossed into the burial pits. Unfortunately, the researchers don't actually know the reason for such mutilations prior to the burials. The team has not uncovered any gravestones or grave goods, and there is no obvious explanation for why these kinds of burial rituals were taking place, or even why they stopped. Number 4. Two-Headed Bat. Check out this two-headed bat found in Brazil. It is literally what nightmares are made out of. Researchers from the Universidade Federal Rural de Rio de Janeiro recently completed research on a specimen of conjoined bat twins found in the middle of nowhere in the jungle back in 2001. The strange creature was already dead when it was discovered, as is almost always the case with animals born with too many heads. To date, it's only the 3rd known case of a bat having 2 heads, at least according to National Geographic. The reason this probably happened was because identical twins failed to split after fertilization. The end result was an animal with 2 heads, an unusually large upper thoracic region, and completely separate forelimbs and hind limbs. Basically, this thing was a horrifying mutant, and if we had these kinds of bats swooping around the trees of Brazil, I doubt anyone would ever visit the country again. As for what type of bat this monster was, researchers say it was the neotropical fruit bat, which can be found all throughout Brazil as well as some parts of the Caribbean. Number 3. Shark hunters. A new study out of Brazil is showing that ancient indigenous groups in the country hunted sharks in such large numbers that shark meat probably constituted at least half of their diet. In fact, the indigenous groups apparently killed so many sharks that they used their teeth in many different aspects of life, including as arrow tips and razor blades. They would even drill holes through shark teeth and turn them into cutting instruments. The ancient people would have used these shark tooth tools for everything from scaling fish to sawing wood. So far, shark teeth have been discovered at seaside settlements in Brazil dating from 8,000 years ago all the way to the 1500s. However, before recently, it was not clear as to what extent the original Brazilians hunted sharks. But now, based on scientific analysis of many different shark teeth found, as well as ancient shark remains left behind by the coastal indigenous people thousands of years ago, researchers know that the indigenous South Americans actually hunted sharks on purpose and even had perfected the art of doing so. But what's truly fascinating is that archaeologists examined at least 3,900 shark specimens left behind by the ancient indigenous people, and they found that they not only hunted one type of shark. Researchers were able to identify at least 47 sharks coming from 15 different species, meaning that the ancient people hunted hammerhead shark and even great whites. Number 2. The House of the Flower. Casa de Flor, also known as the House of the Flower, is a small structure and massive artistic marvel that was apparently inspired by one poor and semi-literate man named Gabriel Joaquim dos Santos. This is one of the most remarkable abandoned places you can find in Brazil. In its prime, it was basically a castle built by a poor and impoverished salt worker. Dos Santos was the son of a former slave who worked his entire life turning stones, pieces of garbage, and even old light bulbs into pieces of art to build his very own palace. The style is described as intuitive Baroque because he built the place just based on his own intuition. He built the house and decorated it inside and out over the years, inspired by his own fantasy and imagination. The sky's the limit. Visitors and art critics consider it a unique expression of spontaneous popular architecture. Gabriel defined it as a house made of shards and made into a flower. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1985. After nearly 65 years of building, his beautiful structure was abandoned. But you can still go and see the remains of the House of the Flowers on your next trip to Brazil. It's since been turned into a local landmark. Number 1. Anacondas. The dark-spotted anaconda is a rare and elusive snake that lives in the Brazilian Amazon. This type of anaconda reaches between 15 and 16 feet in length. Like most other anacondas, this snake loves the water, and they are great swimmers and divers. Their bodies are well adapted to the water too. Both the eyes and nose are set high on the head so they can hunt from the water. They will also rest in branches hanging over lakes and rivers. This allows the dark-spotted anaconda to drop onto its prey from above, as well as to be able to escape quickly if something tries to attack them. The green anaconda is the biggest snake in the world. People tend to overestimate its size just because it's so terrifying, but they can still grow to be around 30 feet. And who knows how big they get deep in the Brazilian Amazon. In 2014, during an episode of Discovery Channel's Eaten Alive, a naturalist named Paul Rosoli put on a snake-proof suit and tried to get swallowed by a 20-foot-long green anaconda. Why? Well, just to see what it was like apparently. The conservationist Daredevil managed to provoke the snake into attacking him, but the crew wasn't prepared to watch a man get bitten, constricted, and eaten alive. He panicked when the snake started to put his jaws around his head and crush his arm. Experts rushed to pull Rosoli out of the snake's mouth. The poor snake didn't know what hit it. Number 10. Indonesian woman eaten. One thing that should never be found inside of a snake is a human person, and yet this happens more frequently than you might imagine. For instance, an Indonesian woman was recently killed and then swallowed by a 23-foot-long python. According to the report from the BBC, Watiba went missing on a Thursday while she was checking on her vegetable garden. A search was mounted by the locals, who later found her sandals and machete in the nearby wilderness, and also a giant snake with a rather strange bulge in its stomach. It was pretty obvious what happened, so residents killed the snake and then cut it open. Inside the snake was the body of Watiba. Unfortunately, she was dead when she was pulled out of the snake, and it's likely that the python ambushed her, crushed her to death with its powerful muscles, then ate her as a light snack. These types of snakes have incredibly flexible jaws, allowing them to eat rather large animals, just like human beings. And in Indonesia, pythons are pretty much everywhere. Number 9. The woman who was almost eaten. Not everyone who has an encounter with a python is eaten. Some people narrowly escape with their lives. For example, Newsweek recently reported a story about an Australian woman who went to bed one night and was almost consumed by a giant snake. This was an Australian scrub python, and it was actually being tracked by researchers from Macquarie University. These researchers had fitted a radio transmitter on the snake, and they watched as it got dangerously close to the house of a woman named Leanne Mears, who lived with a pair of young children. Considering the snake was about 12 feet long in length, it very easily could have eaten her kids. The researchers actually advised the woman that the snake was getting too close to her house and told her to lock the windows and all the doors. But here's where the really silly part comes in. Even after being warned, Leanne left her door wide open. She woke up at 2:30 in the morning with a giant snake coiled around her body and about ready to eat her right leg. She managed to break free from the incredibly strong snake without any serious injury, and the research team captured the snake and took it away. But here's where things get even crazier. The very next year, almost to the day, the exact same snake returned to the woman's house and attacked her dog. Her dog did manage to survive the incident, and the snake was, for a second time, relocated, but this time at a much safer distance. Number 8. Eaten alive on TV. If you remember a few years ago on the Discovery Channel, there was a special called Eaten Alive, in which researcher Paul Rosalie was supposed to be eaten alive by an anaconda. It was one of the biggest letdowns in TV history. The special took viewers 100 miles deep into the Amazon jungle, where Rosalie and his team captured an 18-foot anaconda. The anaconda was supposed to swallow Rosalie alive. This guy had a special suit built, complete with armor designed to protect his ribs from being crushed, fitted with cameras to record the entire thing, and he even had a special mask on with a breathing apparatus and oxygen so he wouldn't suffocate. It was all hyped to be the most dramatic thing in Discovery Channel history. But of course, some things are easier said than done. The anaconda wrapped itself around Rosalie. He panicked, the entire thing was called off, and he never did get eaten. People who watched the show freaked out in anger, calling it a massive waste of time. Peter denounced the show as horrible animal cruelty, and the entire thing was a giant catastrophe. But the real truth here is that getting swallowed by a snake is obviously terrifying, and not something that anyone should try, even for a bit of publicity. Would you dare to do this? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more videos like these. Number 7. Man found inside python. It seems like the only people who legitimately get swallowed by snakes do so in Indonesia. Just like our first story today, another human was found dead inside the body of a python on the island of Sulawesi. This was the same island that the first woman was attacked on. The only real difference in this story is that the victim was a man. After leaving to harvest his palm oil, a man named Akbar went missing. Indonesian police told the BBC that they then found a large snake with a human-shaped bulge in its stomach. Just like the first python we talked about, this one was 23 feet in length. The snake was killed and cut open, and inside of its belly was the body of the palm oil farmer. It's unclear how exactly the man was able to be ambushed by such a predator, as this is not something that happens very frequently. Pythons don't kill and eat humans very often, and when they do, they are more inclined to swallow and digest young children, seeing as they are far easier on the stomachs. Number 6. Strangled by a snake. The star of our next story was also killed by a python, but she wasn't swallowed. Instead, a woman from Indiana was recently discovered deceased with an 8-foot python wrapped around her neck like a noose. According to the report from CNN, she had died from asphyxiation, all thanks to her pet reticulated python, considered to be the longest snake on the planet. This all went down when the Benton County Dispatch received a 911 call when the woman was found unresponsive. Medics arrived at the site and tried to bring the woman back to life, but it just wasn't happening. She was stone cold dead. But here's the weird part of the story. The woman's name was Laura Hurst, and police found on her property about 140 snakes. Only 20 of them belonged to the woman, and it's unclear where exactly the rest of them came from. They were literally crawling all over this woman's house. It was like they knew she was there and came from all corners of the state to try and eat her. Of course, When you have that many snakes in your house, it's only a matter of time before one of them strangles you and tries to eat you. Number 5. Snake on Croc. Let's take a break from all this snake on human crime and check out a kayaker who recently captured the most insane photographs while roaming through a swamp in Australia. The images captured by the kayaker are almost too crazy to believe. This guy actually stumbled upon an olive python in the middle of swallowing a fully grown Australian freshwater crocodile. The snake squeezed this monstrous beast to death, then proceeded to swallow the crocodile from head to tail. The kayaker, whose name is Martin Muller, was extremely lucky to have his camera with him when he came upon the scene. He then posted the photos on Facebook, and they're a little nauseating to look at. You can clearly see the snake with its jaws stretched open, swallowing the gator all the way to the tip of its tail. The snake was probably upwards of 13 feet in length, and it's clearly had no issue chowing down on the equally massive reptile. This just goes to show the raw eating capabilities of pythons. Number 4. Snake in the bedroom. Our next story involves a much smaller snake, and yet the incident we're going to talk about is far more terrifying than anything you can imagine. A man recently woke up to find a 4-foot snake slithering on his bedside table, just inches away from his pillow. The snake was definitely about to try and eat the man head first, and he was lucky to have woken up when he did. This story comes from Leeds in the United Kingdom, and apparently the guy only woke up because of a strange clunking sound that roused him from his sleep. He then grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight, and nearly pooped in his pants when he saw the serpent just inches from his face, with its mouth open and ready to strike. The guy jumped out of bed, flicked on the light, and beheld the serpent half on the floor, half on the table, just inches from his pillow. What's really crazy about this story is that giant snakes aren't native to the United Kingdom, and it wasn't even this guy's pet. The snake had likely been lost or abandoned, and had somehow slithered its way into the man's house with the intent on murdering him. Luckily, the man called the proper animal authorities, and the snake was taken away without incident and is currently being taken care of by professionals. Number 3. Snake in the schoolyard. African rock pythons are some of the largest and meanest snakes in the world, and apparently they really enjoy eating children. As reported by the Sunday Morning Herald, an African rock python over 20 feet in length recently swallowed a 10-year-old boy in South Africa, making it the first recorded incident of one of these serpents eating a human being. This happened in the township of Lamontville, where for 3 hours children hid high up in the mango trees because they were too horrified to go back onto the ground. After all, they had just watched their schoolyard playmate be wrapped up by the python, squeezed to death, and then consumed whole. By the time police arrived on the scene, the child and the snake were gone. All that remained was a flattened bit of grass and a snake trail leading into a nearby stream. The python actually managed to escape the authorities, so the boy was never found inside of its belly. For all we know, this giant python is still lurking around the school grounds, just waiting for its next meal. Number 2. The biggest prey. By this time, you're probably wondering just how much a snake can eat. By this, I mean, what is the biggest animal a snake could possibly swallow? Snakes are obviously very successful creatures. They've been around for millions of years. We've already learned they can eat children and adults, and even giant crocodiles. But how big of a meal can a snake really handle? According to a zoologist from the University of Brasilia in Brazil, snakes will actually eat anything from earthworms to mollusks, and from reptiles to mammals. The biggest prey-to-predator weight ratio that has ever been successfully documented for a snake was in 2018, when a Burmese python in Florida that weighed only 32 pounds swallowed a white-tailed deer that weighed 35 pounds. That might not sound impressive, but it's basically like a 150-pound person sitting down and eating 150 pounds of raw steak. If you were this person, you would probably get sick and vomit after just 3 or 4 pounds of meat. As a snake, you can actually swallow and digest more than your own body weight. Number 1. Hungry snake. Our last story isn't quite as horrifying as the others. A woman in Coalinga recently woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning to find a snake with its fangs piercing her forehead. According to the woman herself, she was roused from sleep when she felt something like a hair clip scraping across her forehead. She reached up and felt something smooth, scaly, and definitely alive. As it turned out, a snake was trying to eat her. Not only was she bitten by the snake, but it clearly had its sights on eating her brains as well. This happened just a few miles from the city of Darwin in Australia, and lucky for the victim of the situation, the snake was actually very small and not overly dangerous. It was only a carpet python, not nearly large enough to eat her alive. It was definitely long, about 4.5 to 5 feet in length, but it wasn't a serious threat. At the end of the day, this is just the kind of thing you have to deal with when you live in Australia. Snakes slither into your house, they bite you on the face, and then they run away like cowards. Number 9. Hasts Eagle. This bird was the biggest and baddest eagle ever. Sadly, the eagle is now extinct. The Hasts Eagle was the largest eagle species that ever lived, weighing around 33 pounds on average and boasting a wingspan of up to 9.8 feet. A true raptor, this ferocious bird was bigger than today's vultures. It had enormous talons, the same size as tiger claws, and it was a very effective predator, able to kill very large prey. The Hasts Eagle is believed to be the inspiration for the Pukai, a monstrous man-eating bird of Maori legend. This makes sense, as the species regularly hunted a large bird called the flightless moa, which weighed as much as 510 pounds. There's no doubt then that the Hasts Eagle could have killed a human. But in the end, the bird had more reasons to fear us than the other way around. Once found on what is now New Zealand's South Island, the Hasts Eagle became threatened after the first Maori settlers arrived in around 1280 and hunted the flightless moa to extinction, completely wiping out this and several other moa species by 1400. Consequently, the Hasts Eagle followed, dying out around the same time. Number 8. Cassowary. Cassowaries are native to the tropical forests of northeastern Australia, New Guinea and parts of Indonesia, including East Nusa Tenggara province and the Maluku Islands. They are related to emus, ostriches and especially kiwis, having diverged from a common ancestor around 40 million years ago. There are 3 living species of these large flightless birds, with the southern cassowary qualifying as the world's 3rd tallest and 2nd heaviest living bird. Southern cassowaries reach between 4.9 and 5.9 feet tall. Females are considerably larger than males, weighing up to 129 pounds, while males generally weigh between 64 and 75 pounds. This noticeable size difference is a feature known as sexual dimorphism, which is defined as a distinct difference in size and or appearance between genders of a species. Besides being huge, cassowaries possess long, dagger-like nails that have killed humans in the past. They are also fast and have been observed travelling as fast as 31 miles per hour. While unprovoked attacks on humans are relatively rare, these birds are inherently curious and do not seem afraid of us. Over the years, they have killed several people and have also earned a reputation for being dangerous to domestic animals. The most famous fatal cassowary attack happened in 1926 when a bird jumped onto a teenage hunter, slashing his jugular vein with its sharp claw. In 2019, a 75-year-old Florida man named Marvin Ajos was killed by his pet cassowary after falling near the bird, whose motivation for attacking its caretaker is unknown. Most attacks involve cassowaries seeking food, but this is not always the case, and it's probably best to stay as far away from them as possible, regardless of whether or not you're carrying food or plan to feed them. Have you ever been attacked by a bird? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new here. Number 7. Kelenken. After an asteroid wiped out 75% of all plant and animal life on Earth around 66 million years ago in what's known as the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, the terror bird family rose to power, becoming South America's top predators for the next 60 million years. There are at least 18 terror bird species, but scientists' knowledge of them is admittedly limited because fossil evidence is scarce. So far, they've learned that these vicious flightless carnivores ruled their environment using their pickaxe-like beaks and sharp claws to kill and feast on smaller herbivorous creatures. Paleontologist Louis Chiap described the largest known terror bird genus, Kelenken, in 2007. It consists of just one species, K. guillermoi, based on fossil evidence discovered in Argentina in 1999. The creature roamed the region around 15 million years ago, during the Middle Miocene epoch, preying on rodents, deer, sheep, young horses, crows, llamas, and prehistoric armadillos and sloths. Its skull measured roughly 2.5 feet long, making it the largest skull of any known bird. K. guillermoi may have reached up to 8.2 feet tall and weighed around 550 pounds. While it's undoubted that terror birds used their fierce beaks to kill, scientists are not exactly sure how they went about doing so. Some believe that they used their beaks to inflict a massive strike on their target, while others think that terror birds picked their prey up and smashed them to death. One thing's for sure, one way or another, these freakishly huge avian creatures were capable of inflicting massive damage on other animals with ease. Number 6. Lamag. The Lamag, also known as the bearded vulture, is an old world vulture species found exclusively among the Eastern Hemisphere's highest peaks, including the Pyrenees, European Alps, Mount Everest, the Atlas and Drakensberg Mountains, the Ethiopian Highlands, and Corsica and Crete. Described by the Audubon Society as the bird that was almost misunderstood to extinction, it has a reputation for being aggressive and ruthless. It's easy to understand why. At first glance, people of the past blamed the bearded vulture for stealing their livestock and children. At up to 4 feet, with a wingspan of up to 9.3 feet and weighing as much as 17.2 pounds, the species has a formidable presence. But bearded vultures are, for the most part, a non-threat to humans and live animals. They are scavengers who feed exclusively on the bones of dead animals that they spot while flying overhead, swallowing small bones whole while dropping large ones from the air in order to smash them and access the marrow. These birds have special stomach acid, which is more caustic than lemon juice, which turns bone shards into sludge. The bearded vulture's reputation has caused populations to suffer, qualifying it as one of the most critically endangered European birds. Activists are working diligently to preserve the species in Africa, Asia, and Europe, and to reintroduce it to places it disappeared from. They also aim to dispel myths revolving around the bearded vultures by educating the public about them, pointing out that these birds play a critical role in preventing the spread of diseases by swiftly consuming fresh carcasses. Number 5. Elephant bird. The island nation of Madagascar is known today for its exceptionally unique wildlife, and its history of hosting animals seen nowhere else on Earth goes pretty far back. Hailing from the extinct Epornithidae family, elephant birds were flightless birds ranging in size from large to enormous. They were some of the largest birds that ever existed, with the biggest species among them, Vorombi titan, reaching up to 10 feet tall and weighing as much as 1,600 pounds, making it the largest bird ever to exist. Elephant birds grew massive due to a condition known as insular gigantism, which happens when a population evolves in a self-contained environment, usually an island, where it lacks predators and grows seemingly unnaturally large. As terrifying as they probably looked, these creatures fed mostly on fruit and vegetation. They were crucial to their ecosystem, helping to keep plant life under control by eating it and spreading the seeds through their droppings. But there was one species that elephant birds were evidently not safe from: humans. Sometime between the 13th and 17th century, they went extinct, and scientists believe that human activity perpetuated their demise. They are unsure, however, whether people hunted elephant birds or simply disrupted their habitats to the point where survival was no longer an option, perhaps eating up the birds' food supply or depriving them of some other basic need. Number 4. Great Horned Owl. People typically do not fear owls, even though we know them as predators and tend not to think of them as cute and cuddly. Native to the Americas, the great horned owl is a large, widely distributed species that feeds on rabbits, hares, rats, mice, voles, and similar mammals. As North America's second heaviest owl and the heaviest extant owl in Central and South America, male great horned owls weigh slightly less than 3 pounds, while females typically weigh around 3.5 pounds. The largest known specimens reached as much as 5.5 pounds. This may not sound like much, but when coupled with a wingspan measuring between 3 and 5 feet and a length of 17 to 25 inches, these powerful predators are imposing to say the least. They can carry up to 4 times their own weight and exert 28 pounds of force when squeezing their claws. Great horned owls have made headlines at least a handful of times in recent years for attacking humans. They are extremely territorial, especially when it comes to protecting their nests, and they are known to unexpectedly strike someone who didn't even realise they were encroaching on the bird's space. When an owl attacks, they fly silently towards their target before swooping in and sinking their potentially lethal talons into the unfortunate victim. These encounters are rare, but they happen, and while most people escape relatively unscathed, the potential for serious harm is there. A series of great horned owl attacks on humans in the Seattle area in 2012 and a particularly disturbing instance of one repeatedly stabbing a jogger's scalp in Oregon in 2015 remind us to be wary in our surroundings any time we're in a place where we might accidentally walk past a nest. Number 3. Pelonischilensis. In 2010, paleontologists in Chile announced the discovery of the fossilized remains of a gargantuan 4-foot-tall bird with a 17-foot wingspan and a beak lined with large, spiky pseudoteeth. Dubbed Pelonischilensis, the specimen likely weighed around 64 pounds and flew the skies between 5 and 10 million years ago. Thanks to its huge wingspan, the creature could travel shockingly long distances without stopping, enabling it to fly to distant parts of the ocean that were abundant with prey. Considering its size, I certainly would not want to be in this bird's path. But if Mapinguari's wingspan had grown any larger, it may have been at a disadvantage according to experts. Speaking with Discover magazine shortly after participating in a study on the species, lead researcher Gerald Meyer explained that too much weight would have rendered the bird unable to fly. Moreover, raising chicks was likely a time-consuming process, making them more prone to predation. Mapinguari is part of the widespread extinct prehistoric Pelonischilensis genus of bony-toothed birds, who experts believe may be related to modern-day pelicans and storks. Fossil evidence of these creatures is rare, because their bones were generally too lightweight to withstand the fossilization process. Scientists admittedly do not know much about bony-toothed birds, but they hope to learn more through future fossil discoveries. They believe that these giant seabirds went extinct around 2.5 million years ago, near the end of the Pliocene epoch. Number 2. Emu. Native to Australia, the emu is the world's second largest living bird and the only surviving member of its genus. This flightless species grows up to 6.2 feet tall and can run as fast as 31 miles per hour. Emus generally eat plants and insects, perhaps giving off the deceptive impression that they are at least somewhat docile despite their size. But they will readily attack when they feel threatened, using their large three-toed feet, which are equipped with extremely sharp talons, to claw into their target. This can easily be fatal to humans. Additionally, emus are not afraid of people, and their inherently curious nature often prompts them to boldly follow or approach humans, a situation where things can go wrong fast should the bird become alarmed. Attacks are more likely during breeding season, and feeding emus encourages them to come unnaturally close to people, which is not good for them or us. Number 1. Mihirung. Members of the extinct Dromornithidae clade of large flightless birds are known as mihirungs, demon ducks and thunderbirds. They were part of the Australian megafauna, a collection of giant animals that disappeared sometime between 50,000 and 20,000 years ago. There are 7 known Dromornis species, the smallest of which was the size of a modern-day emu. One mihirung species, Dromornis steartoni, or Stearton's thunderbird, was around 9.8 feet tall and weighed up to 1,100 pounds, making it the second largest flightless bird on the fossil record. Mihirungs were powerful, with strong legs, leading some researchers to think that they were slow and lumbering, while others theorized that they were more efficient runners than they are perhaps given credit for. These birds had massive, crushing beaks. It's unclear whether they were strictly carnivores or if they were also scavengers or ate plant material. Based on the size of the creature's beak, some experts are fully on board with the carnivore theory. Still, others think it's possible that mihirungs were migratory and largely herbivorous. A 2017 study claims the latter, that these birds were gentle vegetarian giants. They went extinct sometime after the first humans arrived in Australia, around 65,000 years ago, indicating that regardless of their food preference or abilities, they were no match against human activity. While the exact factors driving mihirungs' extinctions are debated, many scholars agree that a combination of predation and habitat disruption wiped them out of existence. Number 8. Manta Ray. The largest rays in the world, manta rays, are a highly intelligent but also highly threatened species. Found in tropical, subtropical and temperate ocean waters, the animals have a large, flat, diamond-shaped body with triangular pectoral fins. They also have 2 fins that protrude from the front of their heads, which has earned them the nickname devilfish. Their name manta means blanket or cloak in Spanish, and it is the perfect description for their unique appearance. There are 2 species of manta ray, including the smaller reef manta with a wingspan of 11 feet wide, that's 3.5 meters, and the giant oceanic manta ray with a wingspan of up to 29 feet, that's 9 meters. Both are filter feeders that swim with their mouths wide open to draw in krill, which they sift through the tiny grates that line their mouths and send them through their gill plates. Rays are known to do somersaults in the water in order to stay in one spot and capture a lot of krill. Even more impressive, they have been known to work together, following one another in circles with their mouths open to create a cyclone that traps their prey in a spiral. Scientists think they are very intelligent and able to recognize themselves in mirrors, and also create a mental map of their environment. Despite their size, they are harmless to you swimmers and are actually very curious. They often like to swim around divers to get a better look. Manta rays are related to stingrays, but manta rays do not have a venomous spine. Stingrays are also sometimes curious too though, and as long as you give them their space, they might want to come over and see what you are doing. One of the funniest pictures out there is of a stingray photobombing some ladies on spring break. Have you ever gone diving with manta rays? How did it go? Were they friendly? Were they even a little too friendly? Let me know what happened in the comments below. Number 7. Whale shark. It might come as no surprise that the whale shark is the largest of the shark species, measuring up to 33 feet long. A huge graceful animal, they may seem like voracious predators, but only if you are plankton or krill, small fish or crustaceans. We as humans have nothing to worry about. Similar to the manta ray, they feed by gulping in water and then forcing it through their gills. Like all the other true sharks, whale sharks don't actually have a skeleton the way we think of one. In fact, instead of having a skeleton made of bone, theirs is made with cartilage. This makes them lighter and more flexible. Found in warmer waters around the world, most of these magnificent beasts are located in the Atlantic, Pacific and Indian Oceans. Most have a beautiful coloration, with blue, grey or brown backs and a white underside. They also have vertical and horizontal striping and white spots that may be used for camouflage. A migratory animal, they've been known to travel thousands of miles, with one particular shark travelling 8,000 miles over 37 months. Mexico is a popular spot for the sharks, and in 2009, a swarm of over 400 were seen off of the Yucatan Peninsula. This makes them a popular animal for tourists to swim with. For those visiting Mexico, Australia and the Philippines, they are able to swim, snorkel and dive with sharks. With scientists believing the whale sharks may live up to 150 years, it gives adventure seekers plenty of time to get out there in the ocean and enjoy a swim with one of nature's most incredible creatures. The only thing you have to be careful of is getting accidentally smacked by their enormous tail. Do you want to go swimming with whale sharks? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're at it, be sure to subscribe. Number 6. Bottlenose dolphin. One of the most common well-known dolphin species, the bottlenose dolphin, has probably the best reputation for being one of nature's friendliest sea creatures. Found everywhere but the Arctic and Antarctic oceans, bottlenose dolphins prefer shallow waters close to the shoreline and are mostly found off the coast of Hawaii and Florida. Their streamlined, torpedo-shaped bodies help them glide swiftly through the ocean, and their colouring, from cream to charcoal or almost black, with a lighter belly, allows them to camouflage from predators below. A highly intelligent aquatic mammal, bottlenose dolphins travel in schools or pods, with several of them bonding together to form larger groups. But what makes the bottlenose dolphin most recognisable is its reputation for being a friendly and curious character in the water. Many divers report being investigated by groups of dolphins when they're underwater, with the dolphins being receptive to being gently patted. Some have even been known to rescue divers in trouble by raising them to the surface, a behaviour they also do towards injured members of their own species. There are even stories of bottlenose dolphins saving swimmers from dangerous predators like sharks. Now that's absolutely amazing. The next time you're out on the ocean, keep your gaze towards the bow wave of your boat to watch for breaching dolphins doing belly flops to show off their high leaps and somersaults. They are truly some of the most intelligent, lovable creatures in the ocean. Number 5. Sea lion. Found in bodies of water all over the world except for the northern Atlantic Ocean, sea lions frequent both subarctic areas and warmer climates, including the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. With their long, torpedo-shaped bodies, they are able to move swiftly in the water, though they are a bit more awkward on land. Sea lions are very social animals that communicate with one another in a variety of ways. Often found in large colonies, they stick together to protect one another, but often move between groups during various stages of their lives. Considered a pinniped, which means they have a winged foot, the sea lion is a highly intelligent animal that can even be taught tricks. Researchers studying Galapagos sea lions found that they are very friendly and are known for not only getting up close and personal with people underwater, but also for investigating new things. They will even jump onto kayaks to hitch a ride, and frequently demand attention, including pats and signs of attention when they come into contact with humans. The people in Peru worship the animal and have a history of legends that tie the sea lion to their culture even today. An area known as Palomino Islands offers tourists the chance to get into the water and swim with sea lions. With no natural predators for them to fear and no reason to fear humans, the naturally curious, friendly and playful sea lion pups are a major tourist attraction for those looking to meet one of the world's most lovable animals. Number 4. Sea otter. A member of the weasel family, the otter is found on every continent except Australia and Antarctica. With 30 species in total, most live in freshwater rivers, lakes and wetlands, with the sea otter and other small marine otters found in the Pacific Ocean. The animal has short ears and a stubby nose with an elongated body and long tail. Their dense fur helps them stay warm and afloat, while their webbed feet and powerful tails act like rudders to move them through the water. Known for carefully grooming their fur and undercoats to keep them clean and to seal off water, the otter does not have a fatty layer like other seagoing creatures to keep them warm. Although they spend most of the time on water, they come ashore to give birth in dens to their pups or kittens who stay with their mother until they are a year old. Otters are expert hunters who dine on fish, crustaceans and other creatures, and they are even known to float on their backs and place a rock on their chest to be used as a tool to smash open the shellfish they find until they break open the shells. Did you know that a group of resting otters is called a raft? The otters entangle themselves in kelp when they sleep so they don't float away, and also sometimes intertwine their feet with another sea otter so they stay together. Known for their especially playful antics, they splash in rivers and streams when they need to have a little fun. Luckily, several international laws protect threatened sea otters, so we can continue to cherish these mischievous creatures for years to come. Number 3. Manatee. A large marine animal with an egg-shaped head, flippers and a flat tail, the manatee is one of the most unique looking sea creatures. Also known as sea cows, they are slow and have a relaxed nature, and are often seen as a cumbersome creature. In fact, they can actually swim very quickly and gracefully, and turn out to be some of the friendliest and gentlest creatures in the world. Ranging from 8 to 13 feet, or 2.5 to 4 meters, and weighing in at up to 1,300 pounds or 600 kilograms, manatees have very strong large tails that help power them when swimming. With 3 species of manatees, including the Amazonian, the American and the African, they typically stay in rivers, seas and oceans along the coast. Often swimming alone or in pairs, they are not territorial. Known as gentle giants, they are peaceful creatures who are curious about humans and tend to flock towards them in search of warmth. Some locales allow people to swim and dive with these endangered marine mammals, but swimmers are encouraged to wait for the manatees to approach them. No, they won't hurt you if you startle them, unless you deliberately provoke them and give them a reason to dislike you. The manatee is a herbivore that almost exclusively eats seagrasses, but one might be disturbed by loud scuba equipment. Therefore, if you're thinking about getting in the water with them, it's wise to use snorkel gear so you can get up close and personal with these cuddly and happy giants of the sea. Number 2. Beluga whale. Going from the immense stout sea cow to the social butterfly of the ocean, the beluga whale belongs to the toothed whale family. It is easily identified by its dome-shaped head, short beak and bright white colouring. Another social marine animal found in the Arctic Ocean, they are known for travelling, foraging and socialising in small and large pods. They also communicate to one another using a series of high-pitched clicks and whistles, similar to other whales, who use echolocation to find food and navigate through the ocean. When they are born, they do not have their bright white colouring and instead are either dark grey or brownish in colour. When they are fully grown, they weigh between 2,000 to 3,500 pounds, that's between 900 and 1,500 kilograms, and can grow up to 17 feet long. Unlike other whale species, the beluga doesn't have a dorsal fin and instead has a ridge where the fin would normally be located. Their flippers resemble paddles to help them to steer and turn in the water. A very social creature, they use high-pitched beeping and squeaking noises to communicate, and are believed to signal warnings or important information such as the location of nearby foods to others in their pod. They also communicate by rubbing against one another and show off their playful nature by chasing one another and playing games. A protected species, the earliest ancestor to the belugas is believed to have lived over 30 million years ago. Related to another type of white whale, the unicorn whale known as the narwhal, belugas can dive up to 2,300 feet to find food, that's 700 meters. A non-violent social animal, scientists believe they will spend more time interacting with each other than any other type of whale. It's no surprise that they are so well known and popular with people. Number 1. Sea turtle. One of the oldest creatures on Earth to remain pretty much unchanged for over 100 million years, the sea turtle is a remarkable creature. Their hydrodynamic shape, large size and powerful front flippers allows them to dive to great depths and swim long distances. Of the 7 species of sea turtle, most have the same anatomy, from their top shells made of many bones covered with horny scales to their inability to retract their heads into their shells. The smallest of sea turtles weigh in at about 100 pounds or 40 kilograms as an adult. Leatherbacks are the biggest of the species that grow up to 2,000 pounds, that's 800 kilograms, with many of them growing slowly and most having a lifespan of many decades. Of the 7 species of sea turtles, the flatback is the only one that is not found in waters in the United States, and instead spotted exclusively along the coast of Australia. While the turtles pose almost no threat to humans, unfortunately we pose a big threat to them. Sadly, 6 of the 7 sea turtle species are now classified as threatened, endangered or critically endangered. But the problem is mostly due to human impact, including pollution, climate change, and even turtles getting caught in fishing nets. Unfortunately, climate change affects the turtles by warming the temperatures of the sand where they lay their eggs, which affects the outcome of the hatchlings. It would be a shame for this ancient creature to dwindle away. Maybe going for a swim with a sea turtle is more of your jam. Whether you're on vacation in St. Thomas, Hawaii, Antigua, or Turks and Caicos, there are countless tour companies who will allow you to dive, feed, and enjoy the company of these ancient animals while still allowing them the freedom to live in the wild. Which of these creatures would you most like to encounter in the wild? Let me know in the comments below. Then, remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. See you next time for another fun video.